Here right now. Right now.
Okay, Rabbi, Boker Or. One oh four, correct. Let's see. Ready to go, boys? Okay. I'm just setting up. Okay. It was posted.
You could come to the table. Come to the table. There's a chair over there in the middle.
Yeah.
And here you have enough.
And then the thing in here. Okay. Okay, let me know when. Get warm a little bit, you know. We go to 107.
Okay, Rabbi, we're good.
Okay, Rabotai, Boker Or Mevorach, Shavua Tov Mevorach. And we are today in Bekiim Bahalacha, Volume 3, and today we're on day 104. Good news for our membership. Be'ezat Hashem, we're going to conclude Bekiim Bahalacha 3 this Tuesday, Shi'avu Alenu L'Tovah. And it's a great accomplishment. Mabruk, B'Siman Tov. And God willing, we're going to start Bekiim Bahalacha, Volume 4 this Wednesday. Volume 4 is just as critical as Volume 3, maybe even more, because now we're moving into the laws of Tefillin. And as much as we thought we knew the Hilchot Tzitzit, this volume has proved that we knew very little. And Tefillin, I think, is going to be the same result. So again, we congratulate our members, pre-congratulations, and we look forward to everybody joining us for Bekiim Bahalacha. Well, if you don't have a book, go onto that website, Bekiim Bahalacha, and they'll send it to you for no charge. We're sending out the books this week. You should have them in time for the new curriculum, for the new semester. So again, Hazak Baruch to Rabbi Bitan, Hazak Baruch to Rabbi Kassin, Hazak Baruch to all the Raymond Saka and all the Haimidana, and all those that are really driving this engine called Bekiim Bahalacha. We have one more day here at our studios in Surfside with our great Rabbi Elmaleh, Yerum Hodo, and some of the local members, Hashim Aleim Yihyu. So we started the discussion the other day, and we talked about what the Gemara Gittin Daf Samech says about not being allowed to recite things that are supposed to be Ba'al Peh, that you're not supposed to put them into writing. So, for example, in the olden days, when we called the Torah Ba'al Peh, it was literally Torah Ba'al Peh. You came into a room, if you came to a Gemara class, one thing you didn't see in the class, books. You saw maybe a cup of coffee. You saw people had their pens, but they could not write it because Torah Ba'al Peh must remain oral. The question is, when did it change and why did it change? It changed for the simple reason, Et la'asot la'Hashem efer Toratecha. Sometimes when there's an overriding reason to do something, we have to break the Torah in order to keep the Torah. You have to suspend the law to protect the law. And in this case, if we were not going to write the Torah Ba'al Peh down, it would have been forgotten. We know that the aptitude of the Talmidei Chachamim gets lower and lower because of Yeridat Dorot. The times of the Midbar, they knew everything Ba'al Peh, but as the generations ascended, the memories became weaker. Today, it used to be when we were young, a person could remember 7 numbers. That was a phone number. So you tell somebody the number, 718, etc. So remembers it, finished. He doesn't have to, now they added 3 more numbers. Okay, it's 10 numbers. Okay, they get the Sifirot. They were able to remember it. Today, tell somebody to remember 7 numbers. They cannot remember it. Why? Because we got spoiled with the phone. So therefore, the more that technology comes and so on and so forth, our brains are being used less, and therefore we're not using the muscles of memory correctly. Therefore, it becomes atrophy. So Baruch Hashem, the Hachamim, and here's a mahloket on this. Rav Chida brings down an En Zocher, Some opinions say it was Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi that put the Mishnah into writing. Some actually say no. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi just finished the text of the Mishnah but didn't put it into writing. Someone would say in his time they actually learned it Ba'al Peh, and only once the Gemara was done in Rabbi Navashe's time, then they already allowed it to become written. So now we discuss the halachot. We start today on page 238. And here is the very important halakha that we learned from Shulchan Aruch. And actually, it was the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. Even though things that are written in the Torah, now we're talking about the written, you're not allowed to say it Ba'al Peh, that's the reverse. You're not allowed to say it Ba'al Peh. However, things that are fluent, that everybody knows, it's not a problem. The example of that was, Shulchan Aruch told us, Kiryat Shema. Everybody knows Kiryat Shema Ba'al Peh, even the kids know it Ba'al Peh. Parashat Tamid, which would be like the Tamid and the Ketoret, etc. Birkat Kohanim. Everybody knows Birkat Kohanim Ba'at. We give our children the Beracha on Friday night. So those were examples that Maran held. There was no problem to remember them or to say it Ba'al Peh. Now, there is a interesting halakha in halakha bet. Hakoreh Kiryat Shema. If a person is, let's say, reading the Kiryat Shema and he wants to fulfill somebody's obligation in the Shema, it's a strange case. Somebody doesn't know how to read, whatever it is. He says, you know what, I need to read Kiryat Shema. So okay, I'll say it for you, and you listen to me. We have a din of Shomei Kauneh, and we never heard that by Kiryat Shema. Normally we hear that by Kiddush and things like that. But let's give an example. You'll see in a minute that it's very applicable, actually. So the Hazan wants to say the Kiryat Shema for the Kahal. We learned, if you remember, one of the opinions that were brought down, that this whole halakha of not being able to say things Ba'al Peh, that's only when you're trying to fulfill somebody else's obligation. But that was the third opinion that we brought actually in the opinions that we learned the other week. Some want to say that if you're doing it for yourself, you can do whatever you want Ba'al Peh. You can read the whole Torah Ba'al Peh. But when you're being motzi somebody else, then already they held that you have to read it actually from the Sefer itself. Now, we learned earlier, Shulchan Aruch didn't take that opinion. Shulchan Aruch's rule was that as long as you know it Ba'al Peh and it's fluent according to everybody, you're okay. I don't care if you're being motzi or not motzi. According to Shulchan Aruch, it does not make a difference, which means, I'm reviewing last week's talk. Last week we said that even though we brought 5 or 6 opinions, we don't take all the opinions. We only take one of the opinions, which is the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. As long as you're fluent in it and everybody's fluent in it, that's enough to read it. Doesn't matter if I want to be motzi somebody or not. However, the Kafa Hayim Sofer, as well as Halacha Berura and Yalkut Yosef, all say that if you're being motzi somebody, even though you're fluent in it, it's better to be strict. Tov Lahmir. From the law, it's mutar, but they all say better to be mami. Now, what's the case? Now, this might be the biggest hadush we've said in a long time. I don't know if it's the halakha l'maaseh, but I saw in the sefer, the sefer is called Shoshanim, not Shoshanim the David, Siftei Shoshanim. There's a rabbi in Israel, Eliyahu Bohbot. Whoever wants to learn the sugya of what we're talking about now, he wrote a whole book on this subject over here of the Varim Shebichtav, what you're allowed to say, Ba'al Peh, 100 pages more on this one topic. And he has Haskama from the Gedolim. So he says, here I have a case. Every day in Kiryat Shema, the last 3 words of Kiryat Shema, Hashem Elokechem Emet. Who are they said by? The Hazan. And the Hazan is being motzi the Sibur, their obligation. Hashem Elokechem Emet is the Varim Shebichtav. And therefore, he wants to say that it's possible, even though everybody knows Hashem Elokechem Emet by heart, but since he's being motzi, and we have an opinion that says you should not be motzi somebody unless you're reading it bichtav, he wants to say the Hazan should look at the words in the Sidur, Hashem Elokechem Emet, which is a tremendous hadush. So you tell me, Hakam, it's only 3 words. We learned last week from the Hekre Lev, from Rabbi Hazan, the grandfather of Chaim Palachi, that said even 1 word, if you say Ba'al Peh, is Asur. So Rabbi Buchbot wants to write, and he says it in the Sefer, that it might be better, according to the Kapahayim, for the Hazanim that say Hashem Elokechem Emet to look inside. That's a tremendous hadush. What would you say, Rabbeinu? I'm not saying that it's
to do with Vayanach Vayom HaShavi, no? To do with the less than 3.
that has to do with starting a pasuk in the middle.
In the middle.
But of course, that's called pasuk shelo paska Moshe ananu paskinan. But this is a different item. This over here is saying that not because it's a part of a pasuk. The halakha says you have to say Hashem Elokechem Emet, but I'm being motzi. I'll give you another example. He brings it in the same halakha. Friday night, we say kiddush. Now the kiddush starts off with what? V'chulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol seva'am. That's Parashat Bereshit. That's Devarim shebichtav. And we're being motzi the family. Let's assume that the guy who's making the kiddush knows it ba'al peh. Let's assume v'chulu. He knows ba'al peh. We say it every Shabbat so many times. And even let's assume that the people around the table know it ba'al peh, but I'm not sure they do. You have ladies, you have kids, you have fine. But the guy who's saying it knows it ba'al peh. Fine. Problem is he's being motzi. And we just learned, according to those opinions, that if you're being motzi, you cannot say it ba'al peh. And therefore, the great Rabbi Eliashiv had a minhag every Friday night. He would say kiddush from the Sidur because he was being motzi the people. And they asked him, and he said, that's the reason why he does it, because he's being motzi the people. So it's a tremendous stringency. I didn't see anybody of this Faradim strict on this. As a matter of fact, even the Ashkenazim, they have testimony from the Stipler rabbi. When he made Kiddush on Friday night for his family, he made it without a Sidur, Ba'al Peh. Hazon Ish, when he made the Kiddush for his family, he made it Ba'al Peh. They asked Rav Sariyat Debritsky, the big Mikubal, he said the minhag is Ba'al Peh.
Good enough for me.
100% is good enough for me too. But you have Rav Eliashiv on the other side. And again, I saw all the great Sephardi rabbis, when they came to Kiddush, they don't use a Sidur. Our rabbis used to tell us you have to do everything Ba'al Peh. If you use a Sidur already, it shows that you're an Amaris. What do you need a Sidur for? There was one time, one of the rabbis, he was making, Hasidic rabbis, he's making the Kiddush, and he makes it Ba'al Peh. And he says, and he gets all mixed up, and he gets flustered, and he doesn't know how to finish it, so they have to bring him a Sidur. So the Hasidim, the boys that were there, they're laughing. What kind of rabbi is this? He doesn't know the Kiddush Ba'al Peh. So they're smirking. So after he finished, he says, you forgive me, every Friday night when I say the Kiddush, the Gemara says that 2 malachim come, and they stand, for the. So when they came in this week, I got nervous, I got scared. So Lesheva, he saw the malachim. He said, sorry, the malachim came in, I got nervous. One time there was a rabbi, the Benu Chaim Yosef David Azulay Rav Hida. He used to learn every morning. He used to have a shamosh. It's the frera. Look at the shamosh of the rab. Every morning he would bring him coffee. And if he had a havruta, he'd bring 2 coffees. If he has 2 guys learning, he brings 3 coffees. So before he brings the coffee, he opens the door to look how many people are there, and then he brings them the coffee. So one morning he opens up, he sees there's 3 guys, and there's Hida. So he brings in 4 coffees. So Rav Hida says, I understand, there's only one guy. What do you bring in 4 coffees? He said, what do you mean? When I looked in, they were saying, he said, no, this is Eliyahu and Navi and the Malachim. They left already. They came to tell me they don't drink coffee. But look at the Shamosh of the Hida is able to see the Malachim. This is the Kiddush of our rabbis. Anyway, he writes over here in the note, and I don't think he's going to say that we should change our practice, but he does bring down those 2 examples of Hashem Elokechem Emet, and he brings the practice of Kiddush, that some, because of this halakha, will say it from the Sefer itself. But I'm not going to say that should be the minhag. I'm not telling everybody they have to make Kiddush now from the Sefer. Again, if you don't know the Kiddush Ba'al Peh, then for sure you should make it from the Sefer, so you don't make mistakes. But if you do it Ba'al Peh, I personally make the Kiddush Ba'al Peh every Shabbat. I know it Ba'al, not because I'm anything special, because we say it so many times, you know it Ba'al Peh. I don't know if we have to be strict.
Same apply to the day?
Yeah, the day is much easier, because the Mizmor David that we say, that's just the Perek of Tehillim, that's not the Kiddush. The Kiddush on the day is Sabri Maranan, Borei Priya Gefen. The old time is they didn't say Mizmor David. They would start Im Tashim B'Shabbat Raglek. They would start from the last couple, but even that is not obligation. Which is, if somebody did not hear Mizmor David, Veshamru Im Tashim, he walked in the last minute, Sabri Maranan. All he heard was Sabri Maranan, Borei Priya Gefen. Is Yotzeh. In the day, the Kiddush is 1 line. Boreh Pri HaGefen. Finished. Night, you have to hear the way Chulu. So therefore, some have that opinion. The next subject is a big subject. The question is like this. When we say that if you know something fluently, you could say it Ba'al Peh, the question is, does it have to be fluent by you and everybody, or just you? So here we have a fantastic mahloket. I'll tell you the opinion of the Bayit Hadash. The Bayit Hadash was lenient. Bayit Hadash says, listen, I don't care about everybody else. As long as the one that's saying it knows it Ba'al Peh, he can say it Ba'al Peh, and you don't have to be concerned about everybody else. Now that's the opinion of Bayit Hadash. Not everybody agreed with that opinion, and actually there's a long list that argued on him, including a great rabbi called Or Zarua. Or Zarua said, no, it has to be fluent by the guy and by the majority of the people. According to Shulchan Aruch, he gave examples. Kiryat Shema, Parashat Tamid, Birkat Kohanim. Why didn't he just say, and anything that you know, Ba'al Peh? Why did he give these examples? He gave these examples because these are usually items that are fluent by everybody. This is also the opinion of the Chesed Alafim, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Ganfried, the Mishnah Berurah, Hacham Ben Sion Lichtman. Ben Sion Lichtman. It's an interesting rabbi. There was a rabbi that came from Eretz Israel to Lebanon. He came to collect money. At those years in Lebanon, they didn't have a rabbi, and they saw Talmid Hakam, so they didn't let him leave, and they turned him into the chief rabbi. So could you believe it? In Beirut, in the Sephardi community, the chief rabbi was Ashkenaz, Hacham Ben Sion Lichtman, and he ended up writing an unbelievable sefer, Shud Benet Zion. Many years ago, they were reprinting the sefer. Rabbi Bitan actually was reprinting the sefer, and he asked me if we can raise money to print it. So we have some Lebanese men that pray in our congregation. So I said, anybody here remember Hacham Ben Sion Lichtman? That was Edmund Safra's rabbi in Beirut. That was all the Hakamim. They knew he was a gadol. I said, well, listen, we have the manuscripts of his book, and we need to reprint it. And Chacham Ovadia always quotes Hacham Ben Sion Lichtman. Anyway, we reprinted the book, Baruch Hashem, and today, Rabbi Bitan did a great job. You have the volumes, maybe 5 or 6 volumes, Ben Sion, Lichtman, Ben Etzion. So he writes over there that we don't go like the Bayit Hadash. We go like the other opinions that say it has to be fluent by the person and by everybody else. Exactly, in the majority of the Kahal. And actually, Hacham Ovadia writes that Rav Chida also agreed with the Bayit Hadash. So you have that opinion as well. So let's see what he writes in Gimal. If you have your books, it's 239. Halacha Gimal. Pesukim hashigurim befi ha'omram. If you have Pesukim that are fluent in the minds of the people. Abal enam shigurim befi kol adam. But they're not fluent to everybody. Yeshekatbu le'achmir. So a lot of rabbis are mahmir. I told you. That's the Or Zarua. That's the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. That's the Chesed Alafim. That's the Mishnah Berurah. That's the Hacham Ben Sion Lichtman. All these rabbis were strict that what? If one should not say it Ba'al Peh. Ulam lahalacha nir'eh sheyesh lemekirim bazeh al ma sheyismochu. Hacham Ovadia was lenient, however. Hacham Ovadia said, listen, if you know it by heart for yourself, even though the other people don't know by heart, it's okay. And especially if it's going to cause bitul Torah. That was one of Hacham Ovadia's main issues. If you're always going to have to stop and say, bring me a sefer, bring me a sidur, then the people are going to have a Torah, and it's going to be bitul Torah. So as long as you know it by heart, it's going to be okay. And again, especially that we have opinions that say it only applies when you're reading it for other people. And you're not doing it for other people because you're not being motzi them. And if we could take those other opinions to be lenient in this case, so therefore the halacha, we're taking the Bayit Hadash. Even though all these rabbis argue on the Bayit Hadash, since we found a chidah that agrees with the Bayit Hadash, and what does the Bayit Hadash say again? As long as the person exactly knows it, it can be lenient to say it. Finally, Shmuel says not the V'rishim Bechtav.
But if you want to read it orally, that's fine.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's not Pesukim, the Shmuel says. Only Pesukim that are written in the Torah. The final case that we have today is you have a Talmid Chacham, he's giving a derasha. We talked about this on Thursday. And he wants to quote Pesukim. Does he always have to get a sefer before he quotes the Pesukim? Now we know clearly Hacham Ovadia Alav Hashem never had a sefer in front of him. I learned when my Rabbi Hechal Baruch Alav Shalom in 8th grade. I don't think he ever opened up a book the whole year. I mean, he had the book on the table, I should say. He never looked at it. Everything, the old Sephardi rabbis, they knew the whole Torah Baal Peh. So the question is, when you're teaching and giving a dirasha, is it okay to say the Pesukim Baal Peh? So he writes in Halakha Dav, V'lachen Tamid Hakam, Hadoresh Lesibur, he's giving a darash, Umaskir b'dirashoto Pesukei Torah. He's quoting Pesukim, Yachol Lismok ala Mekilim, he can rely on the Mekilim that what he knows it Baal Peh. So, and that's what Chabad really was relying on, the Beit Hadash. Since he knew the Pesukim, even though the Tzibur doesn't know these Pesukim, he's quoting Pesukim in Yeshaya. You think the Tzibur knows the Pesukim in Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, all these remote Nevi'im? But Chabad would quote them like he's quoting Eshrei. And what's the explanation? He knew them. So he relied on the opinion of the Beit Hadash, and as long as he knows it, it's okay. Secondly, he relied on the opinion that since he's not being motzi, the kahal, their obligation, and some say it's only asur when you're being motzi, so he's mitzaref that as well. And thirdly, he relied on the opinion that we learned in the Gemara Yomah. When the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he would read the last parasha Ba'al Peh because of Torah Sibur. Remember we said he would say, Rabotai, Parashat Emor, he read from the Haremot, he read from the Torah. And then he moved to Parashat Emor from the Torah. But Parashat Pinehas was too far. So what happened? He read it Ba'al Peh. And the Gemara says, why? Torah Sibur. So Chabad said it would be Torah Sibur to have the Kahal wait for the rabbi to get a book and quote all these Pesukim. And therefore, the Maaseh, Chabad says on 240, V'chen ra'inu Maaseh Rab, Etzel Maran Rishon LeZion, Shizkir b'derashotav Pesukim Ba'al Peh. And the Mishnah Berurah added that the lecturer may rely on these lenient opinions, again, in deference to the kavod of the Sibur. So let's just review what we said here today about that. We said a few hadushim. First hadush was, when it came to Torah Ba'al Peh, either the Yehuda Nasi allowed it, or it happened at the times of the Gemara. That's the big mahloket. We'll get to that another time. When it comes to saying Pesukim Ba'al Peh, if you're fluent in it, you don't have a problem. The examples we gave is Parashat Tamid, Birkat Kohanim, and Kriyat Shema. We also said that the Beit Hadash says the whole Kahal does not have to be fluent, so long as the one that's reading it is fluent. And the Chabad actually took that opinion, the Maaseh. That's the Hidah's opinion as well, although many people argue on that. And that allows the Darshan to quote Pesukim Ba'al Peh, even though the Kahal does not know those Pesukim, but since the one that's giving the Darash knows those Pesukim, we can rely on the Beit Hadash to be lenient. Furthermore, we did say that there are some opinions that say if you're being motzi somebody, then already you should be strict. We don't hold like that opinion. But the Kavaim said, Tov la'amir. Halakha Berurah, the current chief rabbi, said, Tov la'amir. Yalkut Yosef, former chief rabbi, Tov la'amir. Tov la'amir, when's that going to happen? So we came out, according to Rabbi Buchbot, in two cases. Either when you say Hashem Elokechem Emet, since you're being motzi the kahals in the last three words, you should look at it in the Sidur, and if you're saying the Kiddush. However, that is not the minhag. That's not the minhag, because we saw so many Gedolim, although Rav Eliashib maybe was strict, but we saw so many Gedolim, the Umatam Meshabechim ve'omerim, that they said it Ba'al Peh, and therefore those who have a practice to read the Kiddush Ba'al Peh, so long as they know the words. So a lot of times the people read it Ba'al Peh, and they get confused. Then already you need to have a Sidur. And then already you're making two avonot. The first avon, you're making a lot of avonot. First avon is you're not saying Kiddush because you're missing the words. The second avon is you're saying some of the Pesukim Ba'al Peh and you don't know it. And therefore the only heter to say things Ba'al Peh is if you know it. But if you don't know it, you cannot say it Ba'al Peh. And the third avon is you're being motzi other people and they didn't hear Kiddush either. So everybody's eating but without Kiddush. Furthermore, a lot of times what happens is when you don't use a Sidur, you swallow the words. The Gemara says, "En kiddush ela b'mkom seudah." You can only make kiddush where you're having the seudah. Some people, that's the seudah, the kiddush. Meaning they ate the kiddush, they swallow the kiddush, they ate all the 70 words of the kiddush. They have to make a beracha arona on the kiddush. Why? Because they get flustered, so they start to mumble. Exactly. So that's what Hakam Oziel used to say. Bala matzah yatsa, bala haggadah lo yatsa. The person swallowed the matzah is yotzeh, but if he swallowed the haggadah, it's not yotzeh. So similarly, this guy swallowing the kiddush, exactly, he's a balan. So therefore, sometimes when you use a sidur, it stops the guy from swallowing. Because he reads each word. Hacham Baruch used to use otiyot mahkimot. The letters themselves, they bring wisdom to the person, and they slow the person down because he sees the words in front of him. But if you don't have the word, then you mumble it. And especially when the people are trying to hear every word, so you have to be very, very careful with that. So it might be a good idea to use a sidur just because it's more practical. But again, for those people that are fluent, that say it slowly, that don't swallow, even though they're being motzi, and the Kaf HaChaim might have said maybe better, and Rabbi Bohbot brings down that possibly it's a stringy, but he doesn't come out and say you have to do it. On the contrary, the minhag is for those that know about peh, they could keep their custom, and like we said, they're in very good company. Okay, Rabotai, we'll stop over here. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.